Chapter 1. Ethan crouched low behind the remnants of a crumbled wall, his hand clutching Lily's wrist tightly. She was small, her face pale from the fear that had gripped them for days. Every sound in the wind seemed to carry the weight of something deadly, a predator, lurking, waiting. They had been scavenging for hours in the ruins of the city, searching for anything that might keep them alive for another day. Water, food, shelter, everything was scarce now. "Stay quiet, Lily," Ethan whispered, his voice sharp, even as his eyes scanned the broken landscape. They were close to the edge of the ruins now, just a stone's throw from the jungle's dark maw. The jungle had always been a place of dread, a place where the animals were fierce and the stories darker still. And yet, it was the last place on Earth that still offered some semblance of life. Some, though, had learned the jungle's secrets. Lily nodded, her big brown eyes wide with silent terror. She had long since learned to keep her fear to herself. But Ethan could see it, he always could, the way her lip trembled, the subtle trembling in her hands. She was a child, and this world wasn't kind to children. The distant growl echoed through the city ruins, its sound like thunder, a ripple of dread that churned in the pit of Ethan's stomach. His fingers tightened around his makeshift weapon, a jagged piece of metal scavenged from the wreckage of a nearby vehicle. It was hardly a sword, but it would do. If he had to, he'd protect his daughter with his life. It wasn't a choice anymore. It was instinct. He risked a glance around the wall. Nothing. The sound had faded. He thought he heard something in the distance, a rustle, a shift in the underbrush, but it was too far off to be sure. Ethan pulled back from the corner, taking a deep breath. The silence was almost suffocating. "Let's keep moving," he said, his voice tight. He looked at Lily, offering a forced smile, trying to mask the anxiety gnawing at his insides. Lily's small hand reached for his, and they moved cautiously through the ruin, the empty shells of skyscrapers and fallen debris towering overhead. The streets had been empty for years now, yet the ghosts of the past were still everywhere. Burned-out cars, shattered windows, old advertisements peeling from their frames like rotting skin. The world had changed, and Ethan had to adapt. For Lily's sake. Another growl, closer this time. The sound was unmistakable. It wasn't a wild animal. It was something bigger, much bigger. Ethan's pulse quickened. He had fought in the war. He had seen horrors beyond imagination. But this was different. The jungle had changed everything. "I need you to stay close, Lily. Don't make a sound, no matter what happens," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily nodded again, her eyes fixed on him, understanding the gravity of his words. She had grown up far too fast. They both had. Ethan crouched, pulling her down beside him into the shadow of an overturned truck. He held his breath, listening, waiting. Then the earth trembled beneath them. A low rumble like thunder, but it wasn't from the sky. The ground shuddered again, and this time it was followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy wings cutting through the air, slicing the wind with a force that made Ethan's heart hammer in his chest. "Not now," he muttered. His grip on the jagged metal tightened. He dared a glance through a crack in the wreckage. His breath caught in his throat. The creature that emerged from the jungle was unlike anything he had ever seen. A figure emerged from the trees, wings spread wide. The creature was humanoid, yet its features were as alien as anything he could have imagined. A long, sinewy body covered in iridescent scales, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Its wings beat the air with a force that left the ground trembling, the sound filling the stillness. The thing was enormous, towering at least 12 feet, with a sleek predatory grace that seemed out of place in this crumbling city. Its eyes locked onto Ethan's for just a moment, and he froze, caught in the gaze of something ancient, something powerful. The air itself seemed to hum around it, charged with an energy Ethan couldn't begin to comprehend. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, with a startling speed, the creature turned its head and locked its gaze on something behind Ethan. The unmistakable rustle of movement reached his ears, a sound far too close. A predator. Without thinking, Ethan acted. He pushed Lily back into the wreckage, hiding her beneath the cold metal. "Stay down," he ordered, voice strained as he rose from his crouch. His heart raced, his instincts kicking in. It was a moment of desperation, a moment when he knew survival meant he had to face whatever this creature was. His grip tightened on the metal shard, preparing for the fight. But before he could move, the creature's voice, a low, melodic hum, echoed through the air, laced with power. "You need not fight, human," it said, its voice soft, almost hypnotic. "I'm not here for you." Ethan's breath caught. His mind raced. He had heard rumors, stories of creatures, legends from before the war. Were they true? Was this one of them? "Stay where you are," Ethan warned, stepping between the creature and Lily. The dragoness, or whatever it was, tilted its head, studying him. "I could kill you without effort," it said softly. "But that is not why I am here." "Then why are you here?" Ethan asked, his voice shaky but firm. His mind was spinning. Was this a trap? A trick? "I have come to offer you help," the creature said. The scales on its face shimmered, reflecting the dim sunlight as it stepped closer. "I know what you seek, what you need." Ethan's mind raced. This wasn't right. He had seen too much in his life to trust anything that seemed too easy. But as the creature's gaze held his, something in him began to stir, something that whispered that this moment, this meeting, was destined. "I don't need help," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "I need to get my daughter out of here." The creature studied him for a long moment, and then, with a strange movement, it extended one of its long, delicate claws and gestured toward the horizon. "There is more to this world than you know, human, more than you could ever comprehend. But you cannot protect her from what is coming, not without my help." Its voice was firm now, unyielding, as if it spoke the truth of the universe itself. Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. But in that moment, he realized something. Their survival was tied to this creature. And somehow, their fate had already been written in the stars. "I'm listening," he said, lowering his weapon. The creature's eyes glowed brighter. "Good. Then you will come with me." Ethan looked down at Lily, who watched the creature with wide, unblinking eyes. He wasn't sure whether to feel fear or hope. But one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 2. Ethan followed the creature, if it could even be called that, through the darkening ruins, its steps silent, almost gliding over the rubble. He kept his hand firmly on Lily's shoulder, his mind racing, trying to process what was happening. One moment, they were mere survivors scavenging through the remains of a broken world, and the next, they were in the presence of something ancient, something that defied logic. The jungle loomed ahead, its tangled mass of trees casting long, eerie shadows under the dying light. The creature, who had introduced itself only as Celine, moved with a grace that seemed unnatural, as though the earth itself yielded to her presence. Ethan's eyes flickered from her back to the dense thicket, where the sounds of unseen creatures rustled in the underbrush, every crackle of the leaves sharpening his nerves. "Are you sure this is safe?" Ethan asked, his voice low but edged with caution. He had no idea what Celine truly was, but the strange sensation that clung to her every movement unsettled him. She was a being of power, power that he didn't fully understand and wasn't sure he trusted. Celine's head turned slightly, the glow in her eyes catching the last rays of sunlight. "You seek safety, but safety no longer exists in this world, human." Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but there was a weight in it, an inevitability that made Ethan uneasy. "I need to know what you are," he pressed, stepping carefully over a pile of fallen concrete. "And why you're helping us. You saved us, but that doesn't come without a cost." Celine stopped, her wings folding with a soft rustle, and turned to face him fully. For a moment, the air seemed to shift, as if charged with an unspoken tension. "You are correct. Nothing comes without a price." She glanced down at Lily, who was clutching Ethan's hand tightly, her wide eyes never leaving the dragoness. Ethan's protective instincts flared. "What do you want from us?" "I need something you already possess," Celine said, her voice still gentle, but there was a certain finality to her words. "Something you have yet to understand." and something that will determine the future of this world. Ethan narrowed his eyes, not fully grasping her meaning. What does that mean? Celine studied him for a long moment before responding. You are the one who will help me unlock it. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He knew Celine wasn't talking about some simple task. There was a deeper, more complicated reason behind her cryptic words, and he felt it in his gut. His daughter, Lily, was at the center of whatever this was. He could see it now, how Celine's gaze lingered on her, how the air felt heavy with an energy that he couldn't comprehend. Ethan's throat went dry. My daughter, what do you want with her? His voice trembled slightly, betraying his unease. Celine's expression softened, her eyes losing some of their predatory intensity. She is the key, she said quietly. The prophecy I seek to fulfill is bound to her, whether she knows it or not. It has been foretold that only she can activate the power hidden deep within the ruins of this city. Lily's eyes flickered between the two, sensing the tension but not understanding. She squeezed Ethan's hand tighter, and he crouched down to her level, trying to comfort her. It's okay, sweetheart. We'll be fine. Your daughter will unlock the power, Celine continued, but not without risk. The power inside the city is old, ancient, dangerous, and it will not be kind to those who are unprepared. She paused, letting the words settle between them. That is why I am here, to guide you, to protect you both. Ethan swallowed, feeling a knot tighten in his chest. The idea of putting Lily in any kind of danger was unthinkable, but the more Celine spoke, the more he realized there was no escaping it. This power, whatever it was, had been waiting for someone to awaken it. And Lily, for reasons he couldn't fathom, was that someone. I don't understand, Ethan said, his voice hoarse with confusion. How is she the key? Celine took a step closer, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that sent a shiver through him. You will understand soon enough. But there is no time to waste. The longer we wait, the greater the danger. There are those who want this power for themselves, humans and other beings. She glanced toward the jungle, as though expecting something to emerge from the shadows. We must move quickly. Ethan felt a pang of fear, but he couldn't afford to let it consume him. His daughter's life, their lives, depended on whatever this was. He took a deep breath and stood up, looking at Celine with a steely resolve. I'm not just going to hand my daughter over to you, or to anyone, he said, his tone hard. If this is as dangerous as you say, then I need to know what I'm getting into. No more secrets. Celine regarded him for a moment, and then, with a movement so fast it almost seemed unreal, she placed one clawed hand gently on his shoulder. You misunderstand, human, she said softly. This is not about giving her over. It is about protection. What I offer is not just guidance, it is survival. Without me, you will not survive what is coming. Ethan's chest tightened as the weight of her words sank in. She wasn't just talking about the immediate threats. There was something far larger at play, something that would engulf them all if they didn't act. Then what do we do? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Celine's eyes flickered with something ancient, something deep within her that made him feel as if she had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of worlds. We go to the heart of the city. It is there that the power lies dormant. It is there that Lily must awaken it. Ethan glanced down at Lily, her face filled with confusion, but also something else, something resembling fear. He reached down and squeezed her hand, reassuring her as much as he could, though his own uncertainty was gnawing at him. Can we trust you? Ethan asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. You say you're here to protect us, but how do I know you're not leading us into something worse? Celine's gaze softened, though her eyes still held an ancient, unyielding power. Trust is not given lightly, human, but in this world, trust is all we have. She paused, her wings folding around her body. You will see the truth soon enough. Come. With that, she turned and moved deeper into the jungle, her silhouette blending into the shadows like some mythical being. Ethan hesitated for a moment, watching her retreating figure, then looked down at Lily. Her eyes, wide with fear, met his, and he knew what he had to do. They couldn't turn back now. He nodded, offering her a forced smile. "Let's go, Lily." And with that, they followed her into the unknown. Chapter 3. The jungle felt alive in a way that unnerved Ethan. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig underfoot seemed too deliberate, too purposeful. They had been walking for what felt like hours, the canopy above swallowing the last of the daylight. It was impossible to tell if the oppressive darkness was natural or something else. It wasn't just the overgrowth that covered the ground, but the way the air felt thick, heavy, as though it knew something they didn't. Lily walked just behind Ethan, her small hand still clutched tightly in his. Every so often, she would glance up at Celine, whose presence seemed to command the jungle itself. The dragoness moved with eerie calm, her wings folding neatly behind her back, her eyes glowing faintly in the dimming light. She was so much more than she appeared. Ethan felt it in his bones. "I don't like this place," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Her eyes darted to the thick shadows on either side of the narrow path they were following. Ethan squeezed her hand reassuringly. "I know, but we'll be okay. Stay close and don't let go of me." But as he spoke, his own doubts began to grow. There was something unsettling about Celine. The way she always seemed to be watching them, her movements deliberate and calm, yet distant. It wasn't just her eyes, glowing with something far older than anything Ethan had ever encountered. It was the way she seemed to know things. Things about the world, about the city, things that made his skin crawl. Eventually, they stopped by a clearing in the jungle, a small open space surrounded by towering trees whose trunks seemed to have been here for centuries. The ground here was damp, soft, and the air felt cooler. Ethan exhaled slowly. He wasn't sure how long they had been walking, but he knew they needed rest. He glanced at Celine, who was already kneeling down, her fingers brushing over the earth, as though sensing something beneath it. "We should rest here for the night," Celine said softly, her voice cutting through the oppressive silence. Ethan didn't argue. He knew they couldn't keep moving indefinitely. But as he settled down, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were being watched. The air was still, yet it pulsed with an energy he couldn't place. He watched Celine carefully as she stood up, her eyes scanning the area with a quiet intensity. "I know what you're thinking," Celine said suddenly, her voice cool, as though she could read his mind. "You wonder why I'm helping you. Wonder if my intentions are true." Ethan didn't respond immediately. It was as though she had pulled the words from his thoughts. How could he trust her when all of this, everything, felt wrong? "You're not the only one with questions," he said finally, the words coming out harsher than he intended. "You've been cryptic from the start. You keep talking about prophecies and powers that we don't understand. You want us to trust you, but how do we know you're not leading us into something worse?" Celine remained motionless for a moment, her eyes fixed on him with an unreadable expression. Slowly, she stood up, her gaze shifting to the jungle ahead. She seemed to be considering how much to reveal. Then she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Do you know what this city once was, human?" she asked, her words heavy with an age-old sorrow. "Before the war? Before everything collapsed?" Ethan furrowed his brow, looking down at Lily. Her eyes were wide with curiosity, but Ethan could tell she was scared too. She had grown too fast in this world. He wished he could shield her from the truths Celine spoke, but he knew he couldn't. "It was a place of great power," Celine continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "A civilization far more advanced than your own. They harnessed technologies you cannot even imagine, manipulating energies beyond your comprehension. And the power, it's still here, in the heart of the city, waiting." Ethan leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You're saying this city, it's like some kind of ancient hub for these powers?" "Yes," Celine confirmed. "And Lily is the one who will unlock it." Ethan's mind reeled. He had never considered the ruins as anything more than the broken remnants of humanity's hubris. But now, hearing Celine's words, something clicked inside him. He felt like a fool for not making the connection sooner. This wasn't just about survival. This wasn't just about scavenging for scraps. It was something much bigger. "What exactly are you asking her to do?" he demanded. "What will happen to her if she unlocks this power?" Celine turned her gaze toward him, her eyes reflecting an ancient understanding. What I'm asking her to do is dangerous. It requires great sacrifice. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. But without her, the power will remain dormant. The city will remain a threat to all that is left of humanity. It's more than just the survival of your kind. It's the survival of everything. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't know whether to feel rage, fear, or something else entirely. "You're asking a child to save the world?" he said, his voice low, thick with disbelief. "That's insane." Celine's eyes softened for a brief moment, almost as though she felt the weight of his words. "She is not just a child," she said. "She is the key. You don't understand yet, but you will. The prophecy was made long ago, and her bloodline is entwined with the power that lies buried beneath this city." Ethan stood up abruptly, his fists clenching. "You're telling me my daughter is tied to some prophecy, to some goddamned ancient power, and you expect me to just hand her over to it?" Celine's gaze hardened, and for the first time, there was a hint of something fierce in her demeanor. "You will do nothing," she said, her tone unwavering. "Your daughter will choose what she does. But the path is set. She is bound to this, whether you like it or not." Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He turned toward Lily, who had been silent during the exchange, her small body trembling slightly. The fear in her eyes was clear. She had no idea what any of this meant. All she knew was that her father was scared in a way that he had never been before. Lily finally spoke, her voice small but clear. "What happens if I don't do this? If I don't unlock the power?" Celine's eyes softened again. "Then everything will fall. The city, the world, everything will be lost." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't sure what to feel anymore. The stakes had never been higher. There was no turning back from this. His mind raced, but the answer, the truth, was clear. Lily was the key, and the world would depend on her. The weight of it settled over Ethan like a blanket of cold stone. He knelt down beside her, pulling her close. "You don't have to do anything, Lily, but I need you to understand. You're the only one who can make the choice. And whatever happens, I will be right here beside you. Always." She looked up at him, and in that moment he saw something in her eyes, a glimmer of courage, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. As the night grew darker, the jungle's eerie noises surrounding them, Ethan realized there was no going back. They were part of something far greater than they could ever have imagined. And the choice, for better or worse, was now in Lily's hands. Chapter for the journey to the heart of the city was grueling, each step heavier than the last. The jungle seemed to close in around them, its twisting roots and towering trees pressing in like the walls of a suffocating maze. Ethan's body ached with fatigue, his mind still reeling from the revelation that Lily was somehow central to the survival of the world. Every time he looked at her, he saw the same confusion and fear mirrored in her eyes. He knew he had to shield her from it, but how could he protect her from something so vast, so incomprehensible? Celine led the way, her form cutting through the thick vegetation with ease, her wings folded behind her like some ancient guardian. She was a mystery to him, too calm, too sure of herself. The more she spoke, the less he understood. It was clear she had a plan, but whether that plan was for their survival or their doom was still unclear. They reached a clearing by nightfall, the ruins of what had once been a towering structure looming before them. The stones were covered in creeping vines, and the air hummed with an unsettling energy, as if the building itself was alive. It wasn't a typical ruin. It was more like an ancient monument, imposing, vast, and far too precise for the chaotic collapse of civilization. "Is this it?" Ethan asked, his voice low, almost lost in the stillness of the jungle around them. Celine nodded, her gaze fixed on the structure. "Yes," she said, her voice softer now, a trace of reverence in it. "This is the heart of the city. The power you seek is buried deep within, and it is the key to the prophecy." Ethan stepped forward, his hand instinctively gripping Lily's tightly. She was silent, walking beside him, her face pale in the faint moonlight. He could sense her hesitation, her uncertainty. He felt it too. There was no way he could prepare her for whatever lay ahead. As they approached the entrance of the structure, the air grew colder. A low hum reverberated beneath their feet, a pulse of energy that seemed to come from the very stone itself. The doors, massive, intricately carved, stood open, as though waiting for them. This place was built long before your kind could even imagine the technology that shaped your world, Celine explained, her voice barely a whisper. It was constructed by the ancients, those who understood the flow of energy that binds this world together. They knew what was coming. What was coming? Ethan asked, his voice tinged with frustration. You keep talking about prophecies, about some power that could save or destroy everything. But what does that even mean? Celine turned to him, her eyes glowing with an unsettling intensity. The power within this city isn't just a weapon, Ethan. It's a force of nature. The ancients foresaw a time when the world would need this power to survive. They created it to ensure that, when the time came, the chosen one would be able to awaken it. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as the words sunk in. The chosen one, that was Lily. He glanced at her again. She seemed smaller, more fragile than ever, standing there in the shadow of the ruin, her innocence stark against the monumental weight of what was expected of her. Lily, he said softly, kneeling to her level. I don't know what's about to happen, but I need you to know, I'll be right here no matter what. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. We can still leave. Lily looked up at him, her wide brown eyes filled with fear, but also a strange, quiet determination. She nodded slightly, the weight of her decision sitting heavy on her small shoulders. She knew there was no turning back. They stepped into the structure, the massive doors closing silently behind them. The inside was vast and eerily silent, the walls lined with strange symbols and carvings that glowed faintly in the dark. The air felt charged, as if the building itself was alive, waiting for something to awaken it. This is where it happens, Celine said, her voice resonating in the vast emptiness. The power lies in the chamber beneath us. But to access it, you must complete the trial. Only the chosen one can pass through. Ethan's heart clenched. A trial? He didn't like the sound of that. He turned to Celine. A trial? What kind of trial? And why is Lily the one who has to face it? Celine stepped closer to the stone pedestal at the center of the room, where a series of intricate patterns were carved into the floor. The trial isn't just a test of strength or wit, she explained, her voice distant, as though she were remembering something long buried. It is a test of resolve. The chosen one must be willing to make a sacrifice, one that will unlock the power. Without it, the city and its secrets will remain sealed forever. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Sacrifice. The word hung in the air like an omen. He knew instinctively that this wasn't just about choosing to trust Celine or not. It was about Lily and the unimaginable choice she would have to make. Sacrifice? What do you mean by that? Ethan asked, his voice a strained whisper. Celine's gaze darkened. The power can only be unlocked by one willing to give up what they cherish most. The chosen one must be willing to sacrifice something or someone. That is the price of the prophecy. Ethan felt the ground beneath him shift. He couldn't breathe. His heart pounded in his chest as he turned to Lily, the terror in his eyes barely masked. Lily, don't. But before he could finish, the ground trembled beneath them. A low rumbling shook the chamber, and the air around them grew heavier. Celine stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter, as though the power within the ruins was beginning to stir. It's time, Celine said softly, almost reverently. Lily, you must step forward. The trial has already begun. Lily stepped hesitantly toward the center of the room, the strange symbols glowing brighter as she approached. Ethan's heart raced. He wanted to stop her, to pull her back into his arms and tell her it was all a mistake. But he knew it wasn't. This was the moment they had been building toward, whether he was ready for it or not. Remember, Celine said, her voice low and intense, the trial will not be easy. You will be faced with a choice, a decision that could change everything. Ethan moved to stand beside Lily, his hand gripping her shoulder. He wasn't sure whether to comfort her or to warn her. But one thing was certain, whatever came next, they were in this together. The ground trembled again, and then, with a sudden flash of light, the chamber went silent. The air hung heavy, thick with anticipation. Lily turned to him, her face pale, her eyes wide. "Dad, what do I do?" He met her gaze, swallowing the lump in his throat. "You don't have to do anything if you don't want to, Lily. But if you do, remember that you're not alone. I'll always be right here." With a deep breath, Lily nodded, stepping into the center of the glowing circle. The light intensified, bathing her in a brilliant glow. And then the trial began. Chapter 5, the chamber was silent, barely above a whisper. The air thick with a tangible sense of anticipation. And for the first time, that in what felt Lily like an eternity, brighter, Ethan felt a glimmer as though it had a life. They had survived the trial. Ethan stood, but the road ahead would be anything. His heart pounding in his chest. The world had changed. Every instinct told him to pull her away, to protect her from whatever this trial was. But a force greater than his fear seemed to hold him in place. Lily stood still at the center of the glowing circle, her face pale and tense. The faint hum of the ancient power around them reverberated through the floor, vibrating in Ethan's bones. He reached out for her, his hand trembling slightly, but he couldn't touch her. The energy in the room was too intense, an invisible barrier keeping him at bay. "You have to decide." Celine's voice came from behind him, low and calm, but filled with an unmistakable weight. "The trial is about to reveal itself. The choice will be made." Ethan turned to her, his voice shaking with urgency. "What is this? What are you asking her to do? She's just a child." Celine's gaze softened, though the ancient wisdom in her eyes didn't waver. "The prophecy speaks of sacrifice, Ethan. The chosen one must give up what they cherish most. The power that lies within this place can only be unlocked by that sacrifice. Without it, this city and the world will remain in stasis, waiting for something that will never come." Ethan's throat tightened. The weight of Celine's words hit him like a physical blow. Sacrifice. His eyes darted to Lily, who was now standing completely still in the center of the circle, her eyes shut tight. The glowing light from the symbols around her pulsed, each beat of energy echoing in the deep silence. "What is she supposed to sacrifice, Celine? What do you want from her?" Celine stepped forward, her wings folding around her like a shield. "The trial will reveal that. It is not my choice to make. It never was. The power requires balance, light and dark, love and loss. Lily will have to face her own truth, her own fear." Lily's breath caught in the stillness, her hands clenched into fists by her sides. Ethan could see the fear in her features, the uncertainty of a child thrust into a role far beyond her understanding. His heart shattered at the sight. She wasn't ready for this. None of them were. "Dad." Lily's voice was barely a whisper, filled with both terror and curiosity. "What's happening?" Ethan's heart ached, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." He stepped toward her again, but the invisible barrier kept him from moving any closer. "I don't know what this is, but you don't have to do anything you don't want to. We'll find another way." The light around Lily brightened, and she winced as though the intensity was too much to bear. Her eyes shot open, and for a moment, Ethan saw something unfamiliar in them, something older, something resigned. "I'm scared, Dad," Lily whispered, her voice cracking with the weight of her words. "What if I can't do it? What if it's too much?" Ethan's throat closed up, and he fought back the tears that threatened to overwhelm him. "You're stronger than you know, and you don't have to do anything if you're not ready." But Celine's voice interrupted, its soft timbre like a cold wind. She must make the choice. The power cannot be unlocked without it. Ethan felt his stomach twist. And if she refuses? Celine's eyes narrowed, her expression unreadable. Then everything will be lost. The city, the power, and all of humanity's future. It will remain sealed, forgotten by time. The tension in the room was suffocating. Lily stood there, trapped in a glow, her body trembling. Her eyes flickered between Ethan and Celine, as though searching for some way to escape, some way to avoid the inevitable. But there was no escape. Not anymore. The hum of the ancient energy grew louder, vibrating through the very ground beneath them. The symbols on the floor beneath Lily began to shift, twisting and changing, forming an intricate web of light that seemed to pulse with life. Ethan felt the weight of something massive, something that went beyond understanding, pressing down on him. This was no longer just about survival. It was about something much larger, something that transcended the broken world they had fought to survive in. "Dad!" Lily's voice quivered, pulling him back from his spiraling thoughts. Her eyes locked onto his, desperate and filled with fear. "I don't want to lose you. I don't want to make the wrong choice." Ethan's heart broke at the words. He wished more than anything he could take this burden from her, take away the weight of the world she was carrying. But he knew, deep down, there was no escaping this. She was the key, and if she didn't do this, if she didn't make the sacrifice, everything would crumble. He stepped forward again, his voice urgent but filled with tenderness. "Lily, listen to me. Whatever happens, I will always be here. I love you more than anything in this world. And whatever choice you make, I'll stand by you. You don't have to be afraid. This is your decision." Her eyes searched his face, seeking reassurance, but also understanding the magnitude of the decision she was about to make. And then, slowly, something shifted in her. Her trembling hands relaxed, and a glimmer of determination sparked in her gaze. "I'm not afraid anymore, Dad," she whispered, the words carrying more strength than he had ever heard from her before. "I have to do this. For all of us." Ethan felt a wave of pride rush through him, but it was quickly swallowed by the dread of what lay ahead. He knew this wasn't just about unlocking some ancient power. It was about Lily's future. Her innocence, her childhood, was being sacrificed at the altar of this prophecy. But there was no other choice. The world had placed this burden on her. "Are you sure, Lily?" Ethan's voice cracked as he spoke. "You don't have to do this. Not if you're not ready." She nodded, her expression hardening. "I am ready, Dad. I have to do this. For you. For the world." The symbols beneath her feet suddenly flared to life, the light blinding in its intensity. Ethan stepped back instinctively, his heart racing. The air crackled with energy, and he felt the pressure of the power building, rising like a storm waiting to unleash. Lily closed her eyes, her small form engulfed by the light. Her body trembled, but she stood tall. The air hummed around them, and Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the ground beneath them rumbled again. A surge of energy filled the chamber, pushing Ethan back. He could see Lily glowing, the very essence of her being vibrating with the power she was about to release. And then, with a flash that left Ethan temporarily blinded, everything went silent. When the light faded, Lily stood there, the power no longer surrounding her, but somehow still flowing through her. She looked different, older, changed, but still his daughter. Ethan rushed to her side, his voice trembling. "Lily, are you okay?" She opened her eyes slowly, her gaze steady, but there was a depth in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She smiled faintly, reaching up to touch his face. "I'm okay, Dad. I did it." The chamber was still, the weight of what had just transpired settling in. Ethan looked around, the reality of their new world sinking in. The prophecy had been fulfilled, and the future had been altered. But what cost? "I'm proud of you," Ethan said softly, holding her close. "I don't know what the future holds, but we'll face it together."